Paul, would you be surprised if Washington upset Michigan?
I would be. And Molly, I'll spare you, Marcus, the whole world, all the attributes. They're a really good team, but they were also on the verge the other night of maybe the biggest choke job I've ever seen, and that concerns me. The way they let that game get away. I think Steve Sarkisian wasted way too much time. He had a couple of key fumbles, but he could have done a lot more running on them, attacking them, and he didn't. And I think Michigan will do that. They're a phenomenal team, but I really worry about how Washington sets up against the physicality of Michigan. Now, again, maybe I'm a little bit biased, having just gotten back and watched on the sidelines Michigan manhandle a team that I thought was in much better shape and much faster. None of that turned out to be true.
Well, see, here's the thing, Paul. I respectfully disagree with you. I think Michigan's going to win this game, but it wouldn't surprise me if Washington upset, and it was in large part because of the analysis that you were breaking down a bit earlier this week after watching Michigan against Alabama. I'm looking at Washington Huskies. I'm saying to myself, excuse me, a three-headed monster at the wide receiver spot. Penix Jr. can flat out throw the football. Dylan Johnson, we hope that he's going to be healthy for Monday night. He says he should be ready. But the biggest thing you kept emphasizing was their offensive line, one of the best in the nation, and they protect their quarterback. Sure. Well, what was the problem with Alabama? We could talk about everything with Alabama. Obviously, Michigan, bunch of Rough Riders, defense is elite. Give them a lot of props. They look like the #1 team in the nation. They deserve it. The flip side to that, however, was this, Paul, and I reminded everybody of this the other day. With 3 minutes left, the Alabama Crimson Tide were up. They were winning the game. It was a national championship, and this was after their offensive line was so horrible they were offensive. This is after you had a center that counted at least 5 snaps where he missed, at least 5 snaps, and at least 2 drives he ruined. And oh, by the way, the very last play of the game, it was a low snap to the right foot of Jalen Milroe. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint that if Alabama's offensive line showed up, we might not even see Michigan in the national championship game. Washington can score. They can protect their quarterback. They can throw the football. If they put Michigan in a situation where Michigan has to score points, then we're talking about J.J. McCarthy. What you going to do? And I think it could get very, very interesting. And that's what I think is appealing about this Monday night national championship game, Paul.
Stephen, I agree with a lot of what you said there because I came away down on Alabama, but in talking to people inside that program, they still felt like they were better than Michigan. And that is an aspect that does support your argument. I'm not here to help you win arguments. You do a pretty good job of that yourself. But there is some concern. And quite frankly, the team that we're not talking about because they're not there, because they didn't get invited, might be better than all these two. And that's Georgia, because Georgia really just totally screwed up and wasted an opportunity against Alabama because No, but I'm just making a point that if you do a pecking order of who really are the best teams in the country, but you have to get there, and they didn't. But listen, I think Michigan is just going to impose their will in spite of the offensive line. I hate to keep repeating myself about what I saw, but it was a scary sight to see. And I just don't know if Washington, even though they played a lot of really tight games and they've won those tight games, but they have lived on the edge all year. I mean, they beat, what was it, Arizona State 15-7? Games like that concern me, Stephen A.
Got you. Listen, Molly, I know we got to move on, but last point, I want to take a moment to give Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart props. They don't get to the national college football playoffs. They don't get to the national championship game. They show up to a bowl game. They ramrod FSU. Right. Why? Because they showed up and played, even though they were 2-time reigning defending national champions that knew they were one of the top 2 teams in the nation, but didn't get in the postseason. But Florida State University got 29 players that don't even show up. Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart honored the sport. FSU did not.
Do you think Nick Saban could retire?
I want to preface my comments by saying I have no inside knowledge about this. Okay, I have not spoken to Nick Saban. I will reach out to speak to him in the days to come because I love me some Nick Saban. But do I believe he's going to retire, Paul Finebaum? Hell no. I do not see it. the Nick Saban that I know, the Nick Saban that's had me down a couple of times to speak to the team, the Nick Saban that I've had a couple of private conversations with, you understand, that has enlightened me about the man that he is and just talking to me about the world of sports and beyond. I got to tell you something, that the competitive fervor in that man, he's not bowing out like this. Now, I want to remind everybody, he's 72 years old. Okay, this is not Bill Belichick 72 years old. This is Nick Saban 72 years old. The 7-time national champion, 6 at Alabama, 6 national titles, 201 and 29 overall record, 10 or more wins in 16 straight seasons. His record in the SEC is 117 and 18. I'm gonna say that again. 117 and 18. And because this man hasn't won a national title over the last 3 years, and because he may be a bit perturbed with the changing times, with the NIL and the transfer portal, last time I checked, these brothers just thought that they were the better team and they should be playing in Monday night's national championship game because they were one of the final 4 teams in the nation. I do not believe that this man, for 1 second, is walking away from the sport. I would be shocked if Nick Saban walked away from Alabama and from coaching and walked into the retirement. I've seen nothing, not a scintilla of evidence that tells me that this man is going to walk away. I don't believe it.
Stephen A., I did make those comments, and I made them 51 hours ago. Things have changed since then.
Okay.
He is
no one's counting, though.
Nick Saban was very tired this season. I don't know whether that's because he's 72 or because he got sick after the SEC championship game and he's recruiting, all the things that we already know and every coach has to do. And the people around him were worried. I heard it from people that work for him. Be careful, watch him in Pasadena, see how he handles it. He handled it well. He nearly won the game. We're not here to quibble about the end of the game. That's already been done. But you said something. He hasn't won in 3 years. That's breaking news in Alabama because he used to win about every other year, sure. And we were used to it, and the fans were used to it. But it's a different world now. There was a feeling out there, Stephen A., that if he won that game and then went to Houston and won on Monday night, this is a different story, then he would have walked away because it was such a perfect ending. But Nick Saban, as you said, he doesn't care about perfect endings. He's hosting a recruiting weekend this weekend. He's trying to get more recruits. He knows what he has to do. There'll be some changes on the staff. And I think a couple of days is a big thing. He's had a chance to reflect. And I agree with you. Nobody's more competitive. The difference is the game has changed. Right. And he's not going to win it every other year. Remember when he and Dabo were going back and forth. It's incredible. But I think it will be more difficult to win, but I think the 12-team playoff inspires him and energizes him, right. And he will likely be back.
Paul, do you remember when you were messing with me last year because Nick Saban had me come down and talk to the football team?
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about that. Well, here's what I didn't say. Prior to the speech to the players, Nick Saban had me in his office for about an hour. We spoke one-on-one. Actually, my brother-in-law, Darren O, he was there with me as well. We were sitting in the office. And Nick Saban started talking to me about the principles of winning and winning in life, not just in the games. And he talked about change, how it's inevitable, especially when you win, because people are usually coming up with obstacles to derail you. And he said the true winners, this was Nick Saban, he said the true winners are the ones who keep on going, who adapt and adjust and find new ways to give familiar results. Yeah. That's what I'm leaning on. When I heard Paul Finebaum alluding to potential retirement, because I said the Nick Saban that I sat in front of, that I spoke to, there is no way he would leave under these conditions. If his health was compromised, that's different. Okay? If stuff has gotten so chaotic that it's impossible for him to succeed, okay, because it's just not a fair and equitable system, not even anything remotely close to it, that's different.
Okay.
But that man,
yeah,
No.
No, consistent, resilient, and evolves. Paul, we got to roll. Oh, Paul, you're quick. Go.
One question. I just want to say this, and I've said it before, but Stephen A., back to your speech to the team, Saban has told me, other people there have told me, he's had Kobe, he's had everybody on the face of the earth coming down there, including Mike Tyson, Pete Rose, year after year. He told me, and other people have told me, the best single speech that he's ever had, speaking to the University of Alabama football team, is Stephen A. Smith.